What if the key to unshakable confidence wasn't about boosting your self-esteem or seeking approval from others, but instead about mastering your own mind? Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This simple yet profound idea is at the heart of Stoic philosophy, and it's also the foundation of something deeply transformative: self-trust. Self-trust isn't about believing you'll never fail or that everything will go your way. It's about trusting your ability to handle whatever comes your way, no matter how challenging or uncertain. And Stoicism offers a powerful framework for building this kind of unshakable confidence. Through practices like cognitive detachment, resilience, and presence, Stoic discipline teaches us how to turn doubt into strength, fear into clarity, and hesitation into decisive action. In this video, we'll explore how these timeless principles can help you cultivate a deeper sense of self-trust, one that doesn't rely on external validation or fleeting circumstances. Instead, it's rooted in your ability to stay grounded, focused, and resilient even in the face of life's toughest challenges. So, let's take this journey together and discover how Stoic discipline can empower you to build a confidence that no one can shake. Stoicism teaches us that self-trust is built on the bedrock of control, but not control over the world around us, control over ourselves. This is the essence of what Stoic philosophers called the dichotomy of control, a concept that Epictetus framed perfectly when he said, "Some things are in our control and others are not." The things within our control, our thoughts, our emotions, our actions. The things outside our control, everything else, what other people say, the outcomes of our efforts, even the weather. Self-trust begins when we stop trying to control the uncontrollable and instead focus on mastering what we can, our own responses. Think about a situation many of us face: receiving criticism at work. It's easy to feel shaken, defensive, or even powerless in those moments. But Stoicism reminds us that the criticism itself, what someone says or thinks about us, is outside our control. What is within our control is how we choose to process it. Do we let it define us, or do we use it as an opportunity to grow? When we shift our focus inward, we stop giving power to external judgments and start building confidence in our ability to navigate challenges with clarity and calm. This principle doesn't just apply to criticism, it's relevant in every area of life. How often do we waste energy trying to control outcomes, other people's opinions, or circumstances that are simply beyond our influence? And how much more confident would we feel if instead we directed that energy toward what we can shape: our mindset, our decisions, and our resilience? So here's a question to reflect on. What areas of your life do you mistakenly try to control, and how could shifting your focus inward change that? When we stop battling the uncontrollable and start trusting in our ability to respond well, we lay the foundation for a confidence that's unshakable no matter what life throws our way. Imagine facing failure without fear. This is the power of cognitive detachment. At its core, cognitive detachment is about creating space between ourselves and our emotions, allowing us to observe them without being consumed by them. It's not about suppressing how we feel or pretending everything is fine. Instead, it's about recognizing that our emotions are just that, feelings, not facts. And when we learn to observe them without letting them dictate our actions, we unlock a profound sense of self-trust. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest thinkers, put it this way: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Think about that for a moment. How often do we let fear of failure, rejection, or uncertainty keep us stuck? How much of our suffering comes not from the events themselves, but from the stories we tell ourselves about those events? Cognitive detachment helps us step back from those stories and see things as they truly are, not as our fears or anxieties paint them. Take Seneca's own life as an example. Living under the rule of Nero, one of history's most unpredictable and dangerous emperors, Seneca faced constant threats to his safety and reputation. Yet he remained calm and composed, not because he was immune to fear, but because he mastered the art of detachment. He understood that his emotions were natural, but they didn't have to control him. By observing them without attachment, he maintained his clarity and integrity, even in the face of immense pressure. So, how can we apply this in our own lives? Consider a situation where you felt overwhelmed by emotion. Maybe it was anger during an argument, anxiety before a big presentation, or disappointment after a setback. How did that emotion influence your actions? Now, imagine how differently you might have responded if you had paused, observed the emotion without judgment, and then chosen your next steps from a place of calm. That's the essence of cognitive detachment. Here's a question to reflect on. How often do your emotions dictate your actions, and what would detachment look like for you? When we practice this skill, we stop being prisoners of our feelings and start becoming architects of our responses. And in that shift, we build a self-trust that's rooted not in avoiding challenges, but in knowing we can face them with clarity and strength. Confidence is not about the future or the past, it's about the present moment. Too often, we find ourselves tangled in worries about what might happen tomorrow or regrets about what happened yesterday. But the truth is, confidence thrives when we're fully grounded in the here and now. This is where Stoic mindfulness comes into play. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, urged us to confine yourself to the present. It's a simple yet profound reminder that the only moment we truly have is this one. And when we learn to inhabit it fully, we not only reduce anxiety but also build a deeper trust in ourselves. Think about it. How many times have you felt overwhelmed because your mind was racing ahead, imagining worst-case scenarios or replaying past mistakes? The more we drift into these mental time zones, the less confident we become. But when we bring our attention back to the present, we regain control. We're no longer at the mercy of our fears or regrets. Instead, we're able to act with clarity and purpose, trusting that we can handle whatever is right in front of us. Let's take a common example: public speaking. For many, it's a source of immense anxiety. The fear of stumbling, forgetting words, or being judged by the audience can feel paralyzing. But what if, instead of focusing on those fears, you brought your full attention to the present? What if you focused on the sound of your own voice, the feel of the floor beneath your feet, or the faces of the people listening? When you anchor yourself in the moment, the anxiety loses its grip. You're no longer caught up in what might go wrong or what already has. You're simply here doing what you came to do. This is the power of presence. It strips away the layers of doubt and leaves you with a clear, steady sense of self-trust. And the beauty of it is that this skill isn't reserved for rare, high-stakes moments. It's something we can practice every day in the most ordinary situations. Whether you're having a difficult conversation, working on a project, or even just sitting quietly, the act of being fully present can transform how you experience the world and how you experience yourself. So take a moment to reflect. When do you feel most present in your life? Is it when you're immersed in a creative task, connecting with someone you care about, or perhaps during a quiet walk in nature? And how can you cultivate that presence more often? By making a conscious effort to return to the present moment, you're not just building confidence, you're reclaiming your power to live fully, right here, right now. Adversity is not the enemy, it's the teacher. This is one of the most transformative lessons Stoicism offers. Instead of viewing obstacles as roadblocks, Stoics see them as opportunities to build resilience, sharpen our character, and deepen our self-trust. Epictetus, who himself faced immense hardships as a former slave, put it simply: difficulties show what men are. In other words, challenges don't define us, they reveal us. They show us what we're made of and give us the chance to grow stronger, wiser, and more grounded. Think about a career setback, for example. Losing a job, missing out on a promotion, or facing rejection can feel like a blow to our confidence. But what if, instead of seeing it as a failure, we saw it as a chance to reassess, recalibrate, and rebuild? Stoicism teaches us that every challenge carries within it the seeds of growth. It's not the setback itself that matters, it's how we respond to it. Do we let it knock us down, or do we use it as fuel to rise stronger than before? This mindset shift is what makes resilience such a powerful tool. Resilience isn't about avoiding pain or pretending everything is fine. It's about facing difficulty head-on, learning from it, and emerging with a deeper sense of self-trust. When we embrace adversity as a teacher, we stop being victims of circumstance and start becoming architects of our own growth. Consider a modern example, the story of someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it might feel like a devastating blow, a loss of stability, identity, and direction. But with a Stoic perspective, that same person could choose to see it as an opportunity. Maybe it's a chance to explore a new career path, develop new skills, or even start a business they've always dreamed of. The setback hasn't changed, but their response to it has. And in that response lies the power to transform adversity into opportunity. So, here's a question to reflect on. What recent challenge could you reframe as an opportunity for growth? It doesn't have to be a major life event. It could be something as simple as a difficult conversation, a missed deadline, or a personal disappointment. The key is to ask yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I use it to become stronger, wiser, or more resilient? When we approach adversity with curiosity and courage, we unlock a kind of confidence that doesn't just endure challenges, it thrives because of them. Stoic resilience isn't about pretending life is easy. It's about knowing that even when life is hard, we have the tools to navigate it with grace and strength. And in that knowing, we find a self-trust that's truly unshakable. The conversations you have with yourself determine your confidence. Think about it, every moment of self-doubt, every flicker of hesitation, every surge of courage, they all stem from the words you whisper to yourself in your quietest moments. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." In other words, the way you speak to yourself shapes not only how you see the world, but also how you see yourself. And if you want to build unshakable self-trust, you must first master the art of self-dialogue. Stoicism teaches us that self-reflection is more than just a habit, it's a discipline. It's about pausing to examine your thoughts, to question their validity, and to replace irrational fears with rational truths. This isn't about sugarcoating reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging your struggles while reminding yourself of your strength to overcome them. When you engage in this kind of deliberate, honest self-talk, you start to rewrite the narrative of your inner world. Take the example of Marcus Aurelius himself. As a Roman emperor, he faced immense pressure, constant threats, and the weight of an empire on his shoulders. Yet, through his personal meditations, he cultivated a powerful inner dialogue. He didn't deny his fears or frustrations. He confronted them head-on, asking himself questions like, "Is this within my control?" And what is the virtuous way forward? By doing so, he transformed his inner chaos into clarity and his doubt into decisive action. Now, consider how this applies to your own life. What negative self-talk holds you back? Is it the voice that tells you you're not good enough, not smart enough, or not capable enough? These thoughts may feel automatic, but they're not inevitable. Stoicism invites us to challenge them, to ask, is this thought true? Is it helpful? And if not, what's a more rational, empowering way to frame the situation? For instance, let's say you're preparing for a big presentation and your mind is flooded with doubts. Instead of letting those doubts spiral, you could pause and reframe them. Instead of thinking, "I'm going to mess this up," try telling yourself, "I've prepared as best as I can and I'm ready to learn from this experience no matter the outcome." This shift in self-dialogue doesn't just calm your nerves, it builds your confidence by reinforcing your trust in your own abilities. So here's a question to reflect on. What's one negative thought that often creeps into your mind, and how could you reframe it in a way that's both truthful and empowering? When we take control of our inner dialogue, we stop being passive recipients of our thoughts and start becoming active architects of our mindset. And in that shift, we find a self-trust that's not easily shaken because it's rooted in the way we choose to speak to ourselves. Perfection is an illusion. Stoicism teaches us to embrace our flaws. In a world that often demands we be flawless, the Stoic perspective offers a refreshing counterpoint, the acceptance of our humanity with all its imperfections and limitations. Seneca once reflected, "We are all chained to fortune," a reminder that life is unpredictable and so are we. No matter how much we strive to control every outcome or polish every detail, there will always be factors beyond our reach. And that's not a failure, it's simply the nature of being human. This idea might sound counterintuitive at first. After all, doesn't confidence come from being good at something? From getting it right? Not necessarily. In fact, the relentless pursuit of perfection can erode self-trust. When we tie our worth to an impossible standard, we set ourselves up for constant disappointment. Every mistake feels like a personal failure, and every flaw becomes a reason to doubt ourselves. But Stoicism invites us to see it differently. By accepting that imperfection is part of the human experience, we free ourselves from the paralyzing fear of not being good enough. Take the example of creative work, writing, painting, or even public speaking. Many of us hold back from starting or sharing our work because we're afraid it won't be perfect. We agonize over every word, every brushstroke, every sentence, fearing judgment or rejection. But what if, instead of aiming for perfection, we focused on progress? What if we embraced the messiness of the creative process, knowing that each misstep is an opportunity to learn and grow? When we shift our mindset in this way, we stop seeing imperfection as a barrier and start seeing it as a stepping stone. Seneca's insight about being chained to fortune is particularly relevant here. It's a reminder that no matter how much we prepare or how hard we work, external factors like how others perceive our work are beyond our control. What we can control is our effort, our attitude, and our willingness to keep going even when things don't go as planned. And it's in that persistence, that willingness to show up imperfectly, that true self-trust is built. So here's a question to reflect on. How does striving for perfection hinder your self-trust? Are there areas of your life where you hold yourself to unrealistic standards? And what might happen if you let go of the need to be flawless? When we stop chasing an unattainable ideal and start embracing who we are, imperfections and all, we unlock a deeper, more authentic kind of confidence. It's not about being perfect, it's about being whole. And in that wholeness, we find the courage to trust ourselves no matter what. What we desire shapes who we become. This simple truth lies at the heart of the Stoic practice of aligning our desires with virtue, a discipline that not only builds confidence but also brings us closer to true freedom. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it this way: freedom is the only worthy goal in life. But what does that mean exactly? For the Stoics, freedom isn't about having everything you want. It's about wanting what aligns with reason, virtue, and your deeper sense of purpose. When we master this discipline of desire, we stop being pulled in endless directions by fleeting wants and start building a life grounded in what truly matters. Let's break this down. Imagine you're scrolling through social media and you see someone flaunting a luxury car, a lavish vacation, or the latest tech gadget. It's easy to feel a pang of envy or the urge to chase after those things. But Stoicism invites us to pause and ask, does this desire align with my values? Will acquiring this bring me closer to the person I want to become, or is it just a distraction? This isn't about rejecting material things altogether. It's about recognizing when our desires are leading us away from our true goals. Take the example of someone who feels constant pressure to keep up with trends or impress others. Their desires might drive them to work long hours, accumulate debt, or neglect relationships, all in pursuit of things that ultimately don't fulfill them. But when they practice the Stoic discipline of desire, they begin to ask deeper questions. What do I truly value? What kind of life do I want to live? By moderating their desires and aligning them with reason, they free themselves from the endless cycle of comparison and begin to build a life that reflects their authentic self. This approach isn't just about saying no to materialism, it's about saying yes to what truly matters. It's about shifting from external validation to internal alignment. And when we do that, something profound happens. We stop seeking confidence from the outside world and start cultivating it from within. We begin to trust ourselves because our desires aren't scattered or superficial, they're focused and meaningful. So here's a question to reflect on. What desires distract you from your true goals, and how can you realign them? It might be the desire for approval, the need to always be right, or the temptation to chase after things that don't truly fulfill you. Whatever it is, the Stoic discipline of desire invites you to pause, reflect, and choose what truly aligns with your values. When we do this, we don't just build confidence, we build a life that's truly our own. A life rooted in freedom, purpose, and unshakable self-trust. Gratitude is the antidote to insecurity. In a world that often pushes us to focus on what we lack, whether it's success, possessions, or approval, gratitude redirects our attention to what we already have. For the Stoics, gratitude wasn't just a fleeting feeling. It was a deliberate practice, a way of training the mind to see abundance even in scarcity. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most revered figures, began his days with this simple yet powerful reflection. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to be alive. This wasn't just poetic advice, it was a call to ground ourselves in the present and recognize the gifts that are already ours. At its core, gratitude is about perspective. It's about choosing to see the glass as half full, not because we're ignoring the challenges of life, but because we're acknowledging the resources and strengths we have to meet those challenges. When we practice gratitude, we shift from a mindset of lack to one of sufficiency. And in that shift, we build a deeper trust in ourselves, trust that we have what it takes to navigate life, even when the path feels uncertain. Consider this: how often do we overlook the small, everyday blessings that surround us? The warmth of the sun, the comfort of a safe home, the support of a friend. These are things we often take for granted. Yet when we pause to appreciate them, something remarkable happens. We start to feel less anxious about what we don't have and more grounded in what we do. This isn't about denying reality or pretending everything is perfect. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of difficulty, there are still reasons to be thankful. One practical way to cultivate this mindset is through a simple daily practice, journaling 3 things you're grateful for. It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. Just take a few moments each day to reflect on what went well, what brought you joy, or what you're thankful for. Over time, this small habit can have a profound impact. It trains your mind to scan for the positive, to notice the good even in ordinary moments. And as you do, you'll find that your confidence grows not because everything is perfect, but because you're building a habit of focusing on your strengths and blessings rather than your fears and shortcomings. So here's a question to reflect on. What small blessings do you often overlook, and how can you appreciate them more? Maybe it's the quiet moments of solitude, the taste of your favorite meal, or the kindness of a stranger. Whatever it is, take a moment to notice it, really notice it, because when we practice gratitude, we're not just counting our blessings, we're reaffirming our ability to thrive no matter what life brings. And in that reaffirmation, we find a self-trust that's rooted not in external achievements, but in the quiet, steady recognition of our own resilience and worth. Confidence is not the absence of fear, it's acting despite it. The Stoics understood this deeply. They didn't see courage as the lack of fear, but as the willingness to move forward even when fear is present. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most eloquent voices, urged us to begin at once to live and count each day as a separate life. This isn't just poetic advice, it's a call to action. It's a reminder that courage isn't about waiting for the perfect moment, it's about seizing the moment you have, imperfect as it may be. Think about it. How often do we hesitate because we're waiting for the right conditions? We tell ourselves we'll act when we feel more confident, when we've gathered more information, or when the risk feels smaller. But Stoicism teaches us that waiting for certainty is a trap. Life is inherently uncertain, and the only way to build real confidence is to take action, even when the outcome is unclear. Every step we take, no matter how small, reinforces our trust in our ability to handle whatever comes next. Take the example of Cato the Younger, a Roman statesman and Stoic philosopher. Cato lived by the principle of unwavering integrity, even in the face of immense political opposition. When Julius Caesar sought to consolidate power, Cato stood against him, knowing full well the risks. His actions weren't driven by a guarantee of success, but by his commitment to what he believed was right. Cato's courage wasn't rooted in the absence of fear. It was rooted in his willingness to act despite it, and in doing so, he became a symbol of moral fortitude, not just for his time but for centuries to come. This principle applies just as powerfully to our own lives. Consider a situation you've been avoiding, perhaps a difficult conversation, a career change, or even a personal goal that feels out of reach. What's holding you back? Is it fear of failure, fear of judgment, or simply the discomfort of stepping into the unknown? Stoicism reminds us that action itself is a form of empowerment. Every time we choose to move forward, even in uncertainty, we're building the resilience and self-trust that make us stronger. So, here's a question to reflect on. What action have you been avoiding, and what's one small step you can take today? It doesn't have to be grand or dramatic. It could be as simple as sending that email, having that conversation, or committing to 5 minutes of progress on a project. The size of the step doesn't matter. What matters is that you take it, because when we act despite our fears, we don't just overcome them. We prove to ourselves that we're capable of more than we imagined. And in that proof, we find a confidence that no amount of hesitation can shake. True freedom comes from letting go of what we cannot control. At first, that might sound counterintuitive. After all, isn't confidence about achieving results, reaching goals, and seeing our efforts pay off? But Stoicism invites us to flip that script. Confidence isn't about controlling outcomes, it's about trusting ourselves to do our best regardless of what happens. This is the essence of the Stoic practice of focusing on effort, not results. As Epictetus wisely said, make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens. Let's break this down. Imagine you're preparing for a job interview. You've researched the company, practiced your answers, and even picked out the perfect outfit. You've done everything within your control to set yourself up for success. But here's the thing, no matter how much you prepare, you can't control the final decision. You can't control the mood of the interviewer, the competition, or even whether the company decides to go in a different direction. And that's where the art of letting go comes in. When we fixate on the outcome, whether we'll get the job, whether we'll impress the interviewer, we tie our confidence to something outside our control. We set ourselves up for anxiety, self-doubt, and even disappointment if things don't go as planned. But when we shift our focus to what we can control, our preparation, our attitude, our effort, we free ourselves from that burden. We stop worrying about the result and start trusting in our ability to handle whatever comes next. This doesn't mean we stop caring about the outcome. It simply means we stop letting it define us. Think of it like planting a tree. You can choose the right soil, water it regularly, and give it plenty of sunlight. But you can't control the weather, the pests, or whether it grows as tall as you hoped. What you can control is your commitment to nurturing it, and whether it thrives or not, you'll know you did your part. So here's a question to reflect on. What outcome are you overly attached to, and how can you release it? Maybe it's a promotion at work, a relationship you're trying to fix, or even a personal goal you've been chasing. What would it feel like to focus on the effort instead of the result? When we let go of what we can't control, we don't just find freedom, we find a deeper trust in ourselves. A trust that says, no matter what happens, we've done our best, and that's enough. Patience is not passive, it's a disciplined act of trust. In a world that often glorifies speed and instant results, Stoicism offers a different perspective, patience as a form of strength. It's not about sitting back and waiting for things to happen. It's about actively trusting the process, even when progress feels slow or uncertain. Marcus Aurelius once reflected, "Time is a river and its current is strong." This metaphor beautifully captures the Stoic understanding of patience. It's about flowing with time, not fighting against it, and trusting that every effort we make is carried forward by its steady current. Think about it this way, when we're impatient, we're essentially saying, I don't trust this process, I don't believe it will work unless I force it. But patience flips that mindset. It says, I trust that my efforts will bear fruit even if I can't see the results yet. This shift is where self-trust begins to grow. It's not about blind faith, it's about believing in your ability to stay committed, even when the path ahead feels long or unclear. Take the example of learning a new skill, like playing an instrument or mastering a language. At first, progress can feel painfully slow. You might practice for weeks or months without feeling like you're getting anywhere. But here's the thing, every note you play, every word you learn is a step forward. The Stoic approach reminds us to focus on the process, not just the outcome. When we embrace patience, we stop measuring our worth by immediate results and start trusting in the cumulative power of small, consistent efforts. This kind of patience isn't just about waiting, it's about staying engaged even when the journey feels tough. It's about showing up day after day, not because you're guaranteed success, but because you trust in the value of the effort itself. And over time, this discipline builds something profound. A deep, unshakable confidence in your ability to persevere, no matter how long it takes. So here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life do you need to practice more patience? Is it in your career, a relationship, or a personal goal? What would it feel like to shift your focus from the end result to the process itself? When we learn to embrace patience as an act of trust, we don't just build self-trust, we cultivate a resilience that carries us forward even when the current feels strong. And in that resilience, we find a confidence that endures no matter how long the journey takes. In silence, we find the clarity to trust ourselves. It's in those quiet moments, free from the noise of the world, that we can truly hear our own thoughts and reconnect with our deepest values. The Stoics understood this profoundly. They saw silence not as emptiness but as a space for reflection, a chance to step back from the chaos of life and return to what matters most. Seneca, one of Stoicism's wisest voices, once advised, "Be silent as to what you hear and what you say." This isn't just a suggestion to stop talking, it's an invitation to listen, to observe, and to reflect. Silence in the Stoic tradition is more than the absence of sound. It's a deliberate practice of turning inward, of creating space to examine our thoughts, emotions, and actions. When we allow ourselves to sit in stillness, we give our minds the opportunity to untangle the knots of doubt, fear, and distraction that often cloud our judgment. It's in this stillness that we begin to see things as they truly are, not as our anxieties or external pressures paint them. And in that clarity, we find the confidence to trust our own decisions and instincts. Consider the example of Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled during one of the most turbulent periods in history. Despite the constant demands of his role, Marcus made time for solitude and reflection. His personal meditations, now known as meditations, were written not for an audience but for himself. They were a way to process his thoughts, to remind himself of his values, and to ground himself in the present moment. It was in these quiet moments of introspection that Marcus found the strength to lead with wisdom and integrity, even in the face of immense challenges. But you don't have to be an emperor to benefit from the power of silence. Think about your own life. When was the last time you allowed yourself to sit in stillness, free from the distractions of technology, conversation, or even your own inner chatter? What did you discover in that quiet space? For many of us, silence can feel uncomfortable at first. We're so used to filling every moment with noise, music, podcasts, social media, that sitting with our own thoughts can feel unsettling. But it's in that discomfort that growth happens. When we lean into the stillness, we start to uncover truths about ourselves that we might otherwise overlook. So here's a challenge. Carve out just 5 minutes today to sit in silence. It doesn't have to be in a serene setting or with any special preparation. Simply find a quiet spot, close your eyes, and let your mind settle. Notice the thoughts that arise, but don't judge them or try to push them away, just observe. Over time, this simple practice can become a powerful tool for building self-trust. It reminds us that we don't need constant noise or external validation to feel confident. All we need is the courage to sit with ourselves, to listen, and to trust that the answers we seek are already within us. Silence isn't just the absence of sound, it's the presence of clarity. And in that clarity, we find the unshakable confidence to navigate life's challenges with grace and purpose. Humility is not weakness, it's the foundation of true confidence. At first glance, humility might seem like the opposite of self-assurance. After all, doesn't confidence come from standing tall, asserting your worth, and showing the world what you're capable of? But Stoicism offers a different perspective. Humility, in the Stoic sense, isn't about diminishing yourself or downplaying your abilities. It's about grounding yourself in reality, acknowledging both your strengths and your limitations. And it's precisely this balance that builds unshakable self-trust. The Stoics saw humility as a form of self-awareness. It's the ability to look at yourself honestly without arrogance or self-deception. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, put it simply: it is impossible for a man to learn what he thinks he already knows. In other words, humility opens the door to growth. When we approach life with a humble mindset, we're willing to listen, to learn, and to adapt. We stop pretending we have all the answers and start embracing the lessons that come from not knowing. Think about a situation many of us face: receiving feedback at work. It's easy to get defensive, to dismiss criticism as unfair or misguided. But what if, instead of reacting with pride, we responded with humility? What if we saw feedback not as a threat to our confidence, but as an opportunity to grow? This is where humility becomes a superpower. It allows us to hear constructive criticism without feeling attacked, to see our blind spots without feeling diminished, and to make changes without losing sight of our worth. Humility doesn't mean you stop believing in yourself. It means you stop believing you're infallible. It's about recognizing that you're a work in progress, just like everyone else. And when you embrace this mindset, something remarkable happens. You stop fearing failure because you no longer see it as a reflection of your worth. Instead, you see it as a stepping stone, a chance to learn and improve. So, here's a question to reflect on. How can humility help you grow in areas where you feel insecure? Maybe it's in your career where you're afraid to ask for help because you don't want to appear weak, or in your relationships where you struggle to admit when you're wrong. What would it feel like to approach those situations with a humble heart, to say, "I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn"? When we let go of the need to be perfect and embrace the reality of our humanity, we build a self-trust that's not fragile or fleeting but deep and enduring. Humility isn't about shrinking yourself, it's about expanding your capacity to grow. It's about trusting yourself enough to admit what you don't know and having the courage to learn. And in that trust, you find a confidence that's unshakable because it's rooted not in pride, but in the quiet, steady strength of self-awareness. Small, disciplined actions create unshakable confidence. At the heart of Stoicism lies the belief that greatness isn't born from grand, dramatic gestures, but from the quiet, consistent effort of daily practice. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most revered figures, captured this idea perfectly when he wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." In other words, it's not enough to simply think about what it means to live virtuously. We must act on it day after day through the habits we cultivate. The Stoics understood that self-trust isn't built overnight. It's the result of countless small choices repeated over time. When we commit to a routine, we're not just developing skills or achieving goals, we're proving to ourselves that we can follow through. Each time we show up, even when it's hard or inconvenient, we reinforce our belief in our own reliability, and that, in turn, becomes the foundation of unshakable confidence. Take the example of a simple morning reflection. Imagine starting each day by asking yourself, "What kind of person do I want to be today? And how can I align my actions with my values?" This isn't just a mental exercise, it's a deliberate act of self-awareness and intention. Over time, this small habit can transform how you approach challenges, relationships, and even your own inner dialogue. It's not about perfection, it's about consistency. Each day, you're reminding yourself of what matters most and taking steps to live in alignment with those principles. The beauty of routines is that they're personal. What works for one person might not work for another. For some, it might be journaling or meditating. For others, it could be a daily walk or a moment of gratitude. The specific habit matters less than the commitment to showing up day after day. It's in this repetition that we build trust in ourselves, not because we're achieving extraordinary results, but because we're proving that we can rely on our own discipline. So here's a question to reflect on. What small habit could you start today to build your confidence? It doesn't have to be elaborate or time-consuming. It just has to be meaningful to you. Maybe it's setting aside 5 minutes to plan your day, or taking a moment to reflect on what went well before you go to sleep. Whatever it is, the key is consistency. When we commit to these small, disciplined actions, we're not just building habits, we're building trust in ourselves. And with that trust comes a confidence that no external circumstance can shake. To trust yourself, you must first forgive yourself. This might sound counterintuitive. After all, isn't Stoicism about discipline, resilience, and holding yourself to a high standard? But here's the truth, self-trust isn't built on perfection. It's built on the ability to rise after you fall, to learn from your mistakes, and to treat yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a friend. Seneca, one of Stoicism's most profound thinkers, captured this balance perfectly when he said, "Be harsh with yourself but kind to others." At first glance, it might seem like a call to self-criticism, but dig deeper and you'll find a powerful lesson in self-compassion. The Stoics believed in self-discipline, but they also understood the importance of self-kindness. To them, being harsh with yourself didn't mean berating yourself for every misstep. It meant holding yourself accountable while recognizing your humanity. It's about striving for excellence without demanding perfection, and that's where self-compassion comes in. When we forgive ourselves for our mistakes, we're not excusing them. We're acknowledging that we're learning, growing, and doing the best we can with the tools we have. Think about a time when you made a mistake. Maybe you said the wrong thing in a meeting, missed an important deadline, or let someone down. How did you talk to yourself in that moment? Did you dwell on the error, replaying it over and over in your mind? Or did you take a step back, reflect on what went wrong, and remind yourself that failure is part of being human? The way we respond to our own shortcomings has a profound impact on our self-trust. When we treat ourselves with compassion, we're not just soothing the sting of failure, we're building the resilience to try again. Let's take a personal example. Imagine you've been working toward a goal. Maybe it's a fitness milestone, a creative project, or a career aspiration. You've put in the effort, stayed disciplined, and done everything within your control. But despite your best intentions, you fall short. The Stoic approach doesn't demand that you beat yourself up for not reaching the goal. Instead, it invites you to reflect: what can I learn from this? How can I grow? And most importantly, how can I treat myself with the same kindness I'd extend to someone else in my shoes? This balance between self-discipline and self-compassion is what makes Stoicism so powerful. It's not about being unfeeling or detached, it's about being human. It's about recognizing that failure isn't the end of the road, it's just a bend in the path. And when we approach our mistakes with compassion, we're not just building self-trust, we're creating a foundation for long-term growth and resilience. So here's a question to sit with: how can you show yourself more compassion in moments of failure? What would it feel like to let go of the need to be perfect and embrace the messy, beautiful process of learning? When we stop seeing failure as a reflection of our worth and start seeing it as an opportunity to grow, we unlock a kind of confidence that's unshakable because it's rooted not in being flawless but in being whole. The way we see the world shapes our confidence. It's not the events themselves that define how we feel, but the lens through which we view them. This is where the Stoic practice of perspective comes into play, a tool that doesn't just help us cope with challenges but transforms how we experience them. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact." In other words, our interpretation of events is just that, an interpretation. And when we learn to shift that interpretation, we unlock a powerful source of self-trust. Perspective, in the Stoic sense, is about zooming out. It's about seeing the bigger picture, recognizing that what feels overwhelming or insurmountable in the moment is often just one small piece of a much larger story. Think about a career setback, for example. Losing a job or missing out on a promotion can feel like a crushing blow, a sign that you're not good enough or that your efforts were wasted. But what if, instead of seeing it as a failure, you saw it as an opportunity? What if you viewed it as a chance to reassess your path, to explore new possibilities, or to build skills you hadn't considered before? This shift in perspective doesn't mean ignoring the pain or difficulty of the situation. It means choosing to see it through a different lens, one that empowers rather than diminishes you. The Stoics believed that every challenge, no matter how daunting, carries within it the seeds of growth. It's not about pretending everything is fine. It's about recognizing that even in the midst of hardship, there's something to be gained. Consider the modern example of someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, it might feel like the end of the world, a loss of stability, identity, and direction. But with a shift in perspective, that same person could begin to see it as a chance to pivot. Maybe it's an opportunity to pursue a passion they've been putting off, to start their own business, or to explore a completely new field. The setback hasn't changed, but the way they view it has. And in that shift, they find the confidence to move forward, not because the path is easy, but because they trust in their ability to adapt and grow. So, here's a question to reflect on. What situation could you view differently to build your confidence? It doesn't have to be a major life event. It could be something as simple as a misunderstanding with a friend or a mistake at work. How might shifting your perspective change how you feel about it? When we learn to see challenges not as obstacles but as opportunities, we build a self-trust that's rooted not in avoiding difficulty, but in knowing we can rise above it. Perspective is a choice, and it's one of the most powerful tools we have. By practicing this stoic discipline, we don't just change how we see the world, we change how we see ourselves. And in that change, we find a confidence that's unshakable because it's built on the wisdom of knowing that no matter what happens, we have the power to choose how we respond. We become like those we surround ourselves with. This simple truth lies at the heart of Stoic wisdom, reminding us that our environment, especially the people we choose to spend our time with, shapes who we are and how we see ourselves. Stoicism places great emphasis on the importance of community, not just as a source of support, but as a mirror reflecting our values, habits, and aspirations. As Epictetus once said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." It's a profound reminder that our companions influence our thoughts, actions, and ultimately our self-trust. Think about it. When you're surrounded by people who embody virtues like integrity, resilience, and kindness, those qualities naturally begin to rub off on you. Their strength becomes your strength, their clarity becomes your clarity, and their confidence becomes your confidence. On the other hand, when we spend time with those who are negative, cynical, or self-serving, we risk absorbing those traits as well. The Stoics understood this deeply. They believed that choosing the right companions wasn't just a matter of personal preference, it was a matter of moral responsibility. Take Seneca's relationship with Nero, for example. Seneca, one of Stoicism's greatest minds, served as an advisor to the Roman emperor, hoping to guide him toward virtuous leadership. But as Nero's actions grew increasingly tyrannical, Seneca found himself in a difficult position. While he tried to remain a force for good, the toxic environment of Nero's court ultimately took its toll. This historical example serves as a cautionary tale. It's not enough to surround ourselves with people. We must surround ourselves with the right people, those who inspire us to be our best selves, not those who pull us away from our values. So here's a question to reflect on. Who in your life inspires you to be your best self? Are there people who challenge you to grow, who reflect the virtues you aspire to, and who encourage you to trust in your own potential? And are there relationships that might be holding you back, draining your confidence, or pulling you away from your goals? The Stoics would urge us to take stock of our social circles, not out of judgment, but out of a desire to create an environment that nurtures our growth. Building self-trust isn't a solitary journey. It's about finding those who walk beside us, not just in moments of success, but in moments of struggle. It's about creating a community that reflects the best of who we are and who we want to become. When we surround ourselves with people who embody the virtues we admire, we don't just build confidence, we build a life rooted in purpose, integrity, and unshakable trust in ourselves. Reflection is the mirror that shows us who we truly are. It's in those moments of quiet introspection that we step back from the noise of the world and see ourselves clearly, not as we wish to be, but as we are. For the Stoics, reflection wasn't just an occasional activity. It was a daily discipline, a way to align our actions with our values and deepen our trust in ourselves. Marcus Aurelius, one of Stoicism's most reflective figures, captured this beautifully when he wrote, "Look within. Within is the fountain of good." These words remind us that the answers we seek, the clarity, the confidence, the strength, are already within us. We just need to take the time to look. The Stoic practice of journaling offers a powerful way to do this. Imagine ending each day by sitting with a notebook and asking yourself a few simple questions. What went well today? What could I have done better? Did I live in alignment with my values? This isn't about self-criticism or dwelling on mistakes. It's about self-awareness. It's a chance to celebrate your progress, learn from your missteps, and set an intention for the day ahead. Over time, this habit becomes a kind of inner dialogue, a conversation with yourself that builds trust in your ability to grow and improve. Consider a modern example, someone who struggles with self-doubt in their career. Each evening, they take 5 minutes to reflect on their day. They note moments when they felt confident and times when they hesitated. They ask themselves, what triggered those feelings? What could I do differently next time? This simple practice doesn't just help them process their experiences, it helps them see patterns, recognize their strengths, and identify areas for growth. And with each reflection, they build a deeper trust in their ability to navigate challenges and make decisions. But reflection doesn't have to be formal or time-consuming. It can be as simple as pausing before bed to think about one thing you're grateful for or one lesson you learned that day. The key is consistency. When we make reflection a regular practice, we create a space to process our emotions, clarify our thoughts, and reconnect with what truly matters. It's like holding up a mirror to our inner world, not to judge what we see, but to understand it. So, what insights could you gain from reflecting on your day each evening? What patterns might you notice about your habits, your reactions, or your priorities? And how might those insights help you build a stronger, more trusting relationship with yourself? When we take the time to reflect, we're not just reviewing the past, we're preparing for the future. We're reminding ourselves that growth is a journey and that every step, no matter how small, brings us closer to the person we want to become. Reflection isn't just a practice, it's a gift we give ourselves. It's a way to honor our efforts, learn from our experiences, and build the kind of self-trust that comes from truly knowing who we are. And in that knowing, we find the confidence to move forward, not with certainty, but with clarity and purpose. True confidence comes from being unapologetically yourself. It's not about fitting into someone else's mold or meeting external expectations. It's about embracing who you truly are and living in alignment with your deepest values. This is where authenticity becomes a cornerstone of self-trust. When we stop pretending to be someone we're not and start showing up as our genuine selves, we build a confidence that's unshakable because it's rooted in truth. The Stoics placed immense value on authenticity. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, captured this principle perfectly when he said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." In other words, authenticity begins with self-awareness. It's about knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what truly matters to you. And once you've defined that for yourself, the next step is simple but profound. Act on it. Let's bring this to life with a modern example. Imagine you're in a meeting at work and a decision is being made that goes against your core values. Maybe it's a proposal that cuts corners ethically or a plan that prioritizes profit over people. Speaking up in that moment takes courage. It might feel uncomfortable, even risky. But when you choose to stand up for what you believe in, you're not just advocating for your values, you're reinforcing your trust in yourself. You're saying, This is who I am, and I won't compromise that, no matter the pressure. This principle extends far beyond the workplace. Think about the relationships in your life. How often do you find yourself holding back your true thoughts or feelings because you're afraid of judgment or conflict? It's natural to want to avoid discomfort, but each time we silence ourselves, we chip away at our self-trust. Authenticity, on the other hand, invites us to show up fully, even when it's hard. It's about honoring your truth, even if it means standing alone. So, here's a question to reflect on. Where in your life do you need to be more authentic? Is it in your career, where you're suppressing your ideas to avoid rocking the boat? In your relationships, where you're hiding parts of yourself to fit in? Or maybe it's in your personal goals, where you're chasing someone else's definition of success instead of your own. Whatever it is, take a moment to consider how you might step into a more authentic version of yourself. Living authentically isn't always easy, but it's always worth it. When we align our actions with our values, we stop seeking approval from others and start trusting in our own judgment. And in that trust, we find a confidence that's not just unshakable, it's deeply fulfilling. Because true confidence doesn't come from being perfect or pleasing everyone. It comes from being unapologetically, authentically you. Confidence grows one small win at a time. It's easy to get caught up in the pursuit of big, life-changing achievements, but the Stoics remind us that true confidence is built on the foundation of incremental progress. Seneca once wrote, "Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end." In other words, every step forward, no matter how small, is a victory worth recognizing. It's the accumulation of these small wins that shapes our self-trust and fuels our momentum toward greater goals. The Stoic practice of celebrating progress, even in tiny increments, is rooted in the belief that growth is a process, not a destination. When we pause to acknowledge our efforts, no matter how modest they may seem, we reinforce our belief in our ability to move forward. It's not about waiting for the grand finale, it's about appreciating the journey itself. Each small win is a reminder that we're capable, that we're making progress, and that we're stronger than we think. Take the example of someone learning a new language. At first, the task can feel overwhelming, memorizing vocabulary, mastering grammar, and practicing pronunciation. But instead of focusing on the distant goal of fluency, what if they celebrated every small milestone? The first time they string together a complete sentence, the first conversation they have with a native speaker, or even just the act of showing up to study each day. These small victories, when acknowledged, build a sense of accomplishment and reinforce the belief that they are on the right path. This principle isn't just about language learning, it applies to every aspect of life. Whether it's sticking to a workout routine, navigating a challenging project at work, or even working on personal growth, the key is to break the journey into manageable steps and celebrate each one. When we do this, we're not just building confidence, we're creating a positive feedback loop that keeps us motivated and engaged. So here's a question to reflect on. What small win can you celebrate today? It doesn't have to be monumental. Maybe it's finally tackling that task you've been putting off, having a difficult but honest conversation, or simply choosing to respond to a challenge with patience instead of frustration. Whatever it is, take a moment to acknowledge it, because when we celebrate our progress, no matter how small, we're not just building confidence, we're building a life rooted in gratitude, resilience, and unshakable self-trust. Small wins may seem insignificant on their own, but together they form the stepping stones to something extraordinary. Each one is a testament to your effort, your persistence, and your ability to grow. And in that recognition, you'll find a confidence that grows stronger with every step you take. Confidence is not a destination, it's a journey. The Stoics understood this deeply, seeing life not as a series of fixed achievements but as an ongoing process of growth and self-improvement. For them, every challenge, every obstacle, and every moment of uncertainty was an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to become stronger. Marcus Aurelius captured this beautifully when he wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." In other words, what stands in our way often becomes the very thing that propels us forward. It's a reminder that growth doesn't come from avoiding difficulties but from embracing them as part of the journey. Think about learning a new skill like playing an instrument or mastering a language. At first, it can feel daunting, even overwhelming. The notes, the chords, the grammar rules, they all seem like barriers to progress. But over time, as you practice and persist, those barriers become stepping stones. What once felt impossible starts to feel natural, and with each small breakthrough, your confidence grows, not because you've reached perfection, but because you've proven to yourself that you can learn, adapt, and improve. This principle applies to every area of life. Whether it's navigating a career change, building a new habit, or even working on personal relationships, the process of growth is the same. It's about showing up day after day and trusting in your ability to figure things out as you go. The Stoics believed that this mindset, this commitment to lifelong learning, was the key to building unshakable self-trust. When we see ourselves as works in progress, we stop demanding perfection and start celebrating progress. Consider someone transitioning to a new career field. They might feel out of their depth at first, questioning their abilities and doubting their choices. But as they immerse themselves in the learning process, taking courses, seeking mentorship, and applying new skills, they begin to see that their initial doubts were just part of the journey. Each small step forward reinforces their belief in their ability to grow and adapt, and over time, that belief becomes a cornerstone of their confidence. So, here's a question to reflect on. What new skill or knowledge could you pursue to build your confidence? It doesn't have to be something grand or life-altering. It could be as simple as learning to cook a new dish, picking up a creative hobby, or even deepening your understanding of a topic that interests you. The key is to embrace the process, to see each challenge as an opportunity to grow, and to trust that every step forward, no matter how small, is a step toward becoming the person you want to be. Lifelong learning isn't just about acquiring skills, it's about cultivating a mindset of curiosity, resilience, and self-trust. When we commit to growing, we're not just building confidence, we're building a life that's rich with possibility and purpose. And in that commitment, we find the kind of confidence that grows stronger with every lesson learned and every obstacle overcome. Building unshakable confidence isn't about chasing perfection or waiting for the right moment. It's about cultivating the tools to navigate life with clarity, resilience, and purpose. Throughout this journey, we've explored timeless Stoic principles like cognitive detachment, presence, and resilience, each one a stepping stone toward deeper self-trust. These aren't just abstract ideas, they're practical tools that empower us to face challenges with calm, adapt to uncertainty, and stay grounded in the face of adversity. Cognitive detachment reminds us to observe our emotions without letting them control us. It's the skill of creating space between what we feel and how we respond, allowing us to act with intention rather than react out of fear or frustration. Presence teaches us to anchor ourselves in the here and now, freeing us from the distractions of past regrets or future anxieties. And resilience shows us that every challenge, no matter how difficult, is an opportunity to grow stronger and more grounded. Together, these principles form the foundation of a confidence that's not tied to external outcomes but rooted in our ability to trust ourselves. Epictetus, one of Stoicism's most influential teachers, left us with a timeless piece of wisdom: know thyself. These two words capture the essence of this journey. To build unshakable confidence, we must first understand who we are, our strengths, our limitations, and our values. It's not about becoming someone else or meeting someone else's expectations. It's about embracing your authentic self and trusting in your ability to navigate life's ups and downs with grace and purpose. As we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these principles resonated most with your own experiences? How do you see yourself applying them in your life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your stories and insights. And if you found value in this exploration of Stoic discipline, consider subscribing for more content like this. Together, we can continue this journey of growth, learning, and self-discovery. Thank you for joining me on this path toward unshakable confidence. Remember, the journey doesn't end here, it's just the beginning. Every day is a new opportunity to practice these principles, to grow stronger, and to trust yourself a little more. So take that first step, no matter how small, and know that you're capable of more than you realize. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and keep moving